Pam walked into the office that morning feeling slightly nervous but ready. She had been working harder than ever since the last staff meeting, where her ideas were brushed aside. It had been weeks, but she hadn't forgotten the look on her colleagues' faces, the disbelief, the quiet laughter, and the way they made her feel invisible. Instead of letting it break her, Pam decided to turn that memory into fuel. Every evening she stayed back late, going through reports, learning new things, and figuring out ways to make her department better. But no one noticed. Not yet. The office was busy as usual. Phones rang, printers hummed, and conversations filled the space. Pam took her seat, opened her laptop, and began to prepare for the upcoming presentation her team had to deliver. It was a big project that could make or break their department. The manager, who barely looked in her direction most days, had given the main responsibility to another staff member. Pam didn't complain. She quietly did her part, checking the data, fixing errors, and making sure everything was accurate. She didn't crave attention. She wanted results. Still, there were moments when it stung, like when someone else got credit for something she worked on or when her suggestions were ignored. Sometimes she'd sit quietly at her desk and wonder if all her effort even mattered, but then she'd remind herself why she was there. Pam believed that hard work always finds a way to show itself, even if it takes time. Later that afternoon, the manager called everyone into the meeting room for a project update. The team gathered, some looking tired, others excited. The main presenter, a confident man who loved being in charge, started speaking. He explained the strategy, but Pam could tell he was missing key details. Some of the numbers didn't add up. She hesitated at first, and she didn't want to interrupt. But when she realized it might cause problems later, she raised her hand. "I think there's a small error in the second section," she said calmly. The room went quiet for a moment. The presenter frowned slightly, trying to see where she was going with it. "I'm sure it's fine," he said quickly, hoping to move on. Pam didn't argue. Instead, she gently pointed to the figures on the screen and explained the issue. Her voice was steady, her explanation clear. The manager leaned in to take a closer look. Within seconds, everyone realized she was right. The presenter's confidence wavered and the room shifted. "Good catch," the manager said, surprised. "How did you spot that?" Pam smiled softly. "I just double-checked the data last night," she replied. It was a small moment, but for Pam it was the start of something. For the first time, people looked at her differently, not as the quiet staff member in the corner, but as someone who actually knew what she was doing. Over the next few weeks, her confidence grew. She began to speak up more in meetings. She shared her ideas, but never in a loud or pushy way. She spoke with calm certainty, and people listened. The same colleagues who used to overlook her now started asking for her opinion. Some even asked her to review their work before submitting it. Pam didn't hold grudges. She helped them genuinely. But not everyone was happy about her sudden rise in attention. A few co-workers whispered that she was just trying to impress the boss. Others said she was lucky to be noticed. Pam heard some of those comments, but she refused to let them affect her. She knew that the best response to doubt was progress. Then came the big moment, the final presentation of their project to the higher management. The whole team had worked on it for months, but at the last minute, the manager asked Pam to lead the presentation. It shocked everyone, even Pam. She felt her heart skip a beat when she heard her name. "Are you sure?" she asked, unsure if she'd heard right. "Yes," the manager said. "You've done most of the groundwork. You understand it better than anyone else. I want you to handle it." There was silence in the room for a moment. Some colleagues looked surprised. Others exchanged glances. Pam could feel the pressure building, but she nodded. "All right," she said quietly. That evening, she stayed late in the office again, going through her slides, rehearsing her speech, and preparing for every possible question. The janitor who came to clean noticed her sitting there, surrounded by papers, and smiled. "Big day tomorrow?" he asked kindly. Pam smiled back. "Yes," she said. "The biggest." When the morning came, she arrived early, wearing her usual simple outfit, nothing flashy, but she carried herself differently. There was a quiet confidence in her walk, the kind that comes from knowing you've earned your moment. As the meeting began, she stood at the front of the room while the senior leaders took their seats. The lights dimmed slightly, and Pam started speaking. At first her voice was a little shaky, but soon it steadied. She talked about the challenges they faced, how the team worked through them, and how they turned setbacks into lessons. She explained the strategy with such clarity that even the most skeptical faces in the room began to nod in agreement. Sadr, she reached the part with the new proposal she had developed and an idea everyone had once dismissed, and she took a deep breath and presented it with quiet passion. She showed how it could save the company time and money without compromising quality. The room was silent, every eye on her. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then one of the senior directors spoke up. "That's brilliant," he said. "Why wasn't this brought to us earlier?" The manager smiled a little awkwardly. "It was Pam's idea," he admitted. Pam felt a warmth rise in her chest. Not pride in a loud way, but a deep sense of validation. All those long nights, all those ignored suggestions, all those moments of doubt had led to this. The meeting ended with a round of applause. As the team walked out, several coworkers came up to her, patting her shoulder, congratulating her, and some even apologizing for not taking her seriously before. Pam accepted it all with grace. She didn't need anyone's apology. She just wanted to keep doing her best. After that day, things changed in the office. People began to respect her in ways they never did before. The manager often turned to her for advice. She became someone others looked up to, especially the new employees who felt out of place just like she once did. One afternoon, as she sat at her desk reviewing another report, she overheard two junior staff members talking nearby. "I want to be like her," one whispered. "She doesn't talk much, but when she does, everyone listens." Pam smiled to herself. That was exactly the kind of example she wanted to set. Not loud success, but quiet strength. Still, deep inside, she knew her journey wasn't over. Success had brought new challenges. Expectations were higher, and not everyone was happy to see her shine. But Pam wasn't afraid. She had learned something powerful. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned through patience, consistency, and integrity. That evening, as the sun set outside the office windows, Pam looked out and thought about how far she had come. She remembered the day she almost quit, thinking she wasn't good enough. Now she stood taller, not because she wanted to prove others wrong, but because she had finally proven to herself that she could do it. She gathered her things, turned off her computer, and smiled softly. The world hadn't changed overnight, but she had, and that, she realized, made all the difference. After the big presentation, Pam thought the hardest part was over. But she quickly realized that gaining respect and attention in the office brought its own challenges. The same colleagues who had ignored her before were now watching her every move, waiting for a mistake or questioning every suggestion. Some were supportive, while others were clearly uncomfortable with the change. It was a new kind of pressure, one that tested not just her skills but her patience and judgment. Pam took it all in stride. She had learned to stay calm under pressure, and now she needed to balance being helpful and assertive without seeming bossy. Each day brought new tasks, more complex projects, and higher expectations. She spent hours reviewing reports, anticipating questions, and making sure every detail was perfect. It wasn't easy, but Pam had always believed that preparation was the key to confidence. One morning, a new project landed on her desk. It was critical, something that could influence the company's direction for the next year. The manager called a meeting to discuss initial plans, and this time, everyone expected Pam to take a leading role. She quietly took her notes, listened to suggestions, and offered her ideas with clear reasoning. "I think we should approach it this way," she said, pointing to her plan. "It minimizes risk, saves time, and addresses the core issue we've been facing." A few heads nodded, but some colleagues looked skeptical. Pam had noticed that the more she proved herself, the more resistance she faced from certain people. They were used to the old dynamics where their opinions dominated, and they didn't like sharing the spotlight. But Pam didn't let it affect her. She stayed professional, answering questions patiently, showing data and logic to support her points. Slowly, even the most doubtful started to see the value in her ideas. Later that day, as she walked back to her desk, a junior employee approached her quietly. "Pam," he said softly, "I just want to thank you. You make it easier for the rest of us to understand what's going on. I've learned a lot just by watching how you work." Pam smiled. "I'm glad. That's what teamwork is about." It was moments like these that reminded her why she kept pushing forward. Recognition from higher-ups was gratifying, but the quiet appreciation from peers, especially those who were learning from her example, felt even more meaningful. The next challenge came in an unexpected form. A senior team member, who had previously dismissed Pam, began to openly challenge her during meetings. He would question her decisions, point out minor errors, and try to undermine her authority. Some of the staff started taking sides, creating tension that threatened to disrupt the workflow. Pam could have reacted defensively or tried to outshine him in front of everyone, but she chose a different approach. She decided to meet him privately after one particularly heated meeting. "I feel like we have different ways of approaching things," she said calmly. "I want us to work together, not against each other." He was surprised by her composed tone. "I just don't see why we should follow your plan all the time," he replied. Pam nodded. "I understand. But the goal is the same, success for the team. If we combine our strengths, we can get there faster and avoid mistakes." It wasn't easy, but slowly he started listening. Over the next few weeks, they found a rhythm. Pam respected his experience, and he began to see her insight and careful preparation. Their collaboration became one of the most productive in the department. It was a lesson Pam had learned early in her career. Sometimes respect had to be earned not just through results, but through understanding and patience. At the same time, Pam was juggling multiple projects. Some days were long and exhausting, with deadlines back-to-back and unexpected problems popping up constantly. But she had a way of keeping her focus. She made detailed lists, prioritized tasks, and checked in regularly with her team to ensure everyone was on track. People noticed her dedication, and slowly, more of the staff began to adopt her habits, double-checking reports, organizing work better, and communicating clearly. Pam also made it a point to celebrate small wins. If a junior employee completed a difficult task or an idea from her suggestions worked well, she praised them openly. She wanted the environment to feel supportive, not competitive. Over time, the office culture began to shift, and Pam's influence became more subtle but profound. People were starting to trust each other more, work more efficiently, and approach problems with a mindset of solutions rather than blame. One day, a major issue arose that could have derailed a critical project. A supplier had failed to deliver essential materials on time, and the team was under pressure. The manager was visibly stressed and asked the staff for immediate solutions. Some colleagues panicked, others pointed fingers. Pam remained calm. "I've reviewed the schedule and inventory," she said. "If we adjust the workflow and temporarily reassign a few tasks, we can keep the project on track without delaying deadlines." Her solution was practical, clear, and achievable. The manager agreed, and the team implemented it immediately. The crisis passed, and once again, Pam had demonstrated her value. But this time, the recognition went beyond her manager. The entire team realized that she was someone who didn't just react to problems, but anticipated and solved them. Despite her growing reputation, Pam never became arrogant. She continued to learn, asking questions when needed, seeking feedback, and showing humility. People noticed this too. It wasn't just that she was competent. She was approachable, willing to help, and genuinely cared about the success of others. That combination made her both respected and liked, a rare balance in any workplace. However, not every day was easy. Some moments still brought doubt and frustration. There were times when her ideas were rejected, when projects didn't go as planned, or when a colleague openly criticized her in front of others. Each time, Pam reminded herself that progress wasn't linear. Setbacks were part of the journey, and resilience was the key to long-term success. One particularly tough afternoon, she stayed late, reviewing a report that had several errors from different team members. She sighed quietly, feeling the weight of responsibility. A cleaning staff member who had seen her working late many times knocked gently on her door. "You're here again," he said with a small smile. "You work so hard." Pam smiled back, tired but determined. "It's part of the job. I just want to get it right." "You're making a difference," he said. "Even if people don't say it, they notice." That simple comment gave her a renewed sense of purpose. Pam realized that her work wasn't just about deadlines or recognition. It was about setting an example, showing what dedication and integrity looked like, and inspiring others to do the same. As weeks turned into months, her role in the office became more significant. She started mentoring new employees, helping them understand processes and encouraging them to speak up. She introduced small improvements to daily routines that made work smoother, reducing confusion and stress. Slowly, the team became more cohesive and morale improved. One afternoon, during a casual team discussion, someone asked, "Pam, how do you stay so calm under pressure?" She thought for a moment and said, "I focus on what I can control. I prepare, I stay honest, and I try to help others when I can. Everything else, we just handle as it comes." Her answer resonated with everyone. It wasn't about being perfect or controlling every outcome. It was about steady commitment and integrity. That mindset became the foundation of her growing influence in the office. Even outside work, Pam's life started reflecting the same principles. She organized her personal schedule, balanced responsibilities at home, and kept a quiet routine of self-improvement. She read books on leadership, communication, and problem-solving. Every day she learned something new and applied it, not to impress others but to be better, for herself and for those around her. By the end of Part 3, Pam had not only solidified her place in the office but had quietly transformed it. The environment became more collaborative, her colleagues more receptive, and her role more critical. Yet she remained humble, focused, and ready for whatever challenge came next. She understood that influence wasn't about dominating the room. It was about consistency, empathy, and unwavering dedication. And through it all, the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had earned respect the right way kept her moving forward. She wasn't done yet. Her journey had only just begun, and she was prepared to face every challenge head-on, continuing to surprise those who had once underestimated her. Pam had reached a point where her work was visible to everyone in the office, but that visibility came with its own challenges. People who had once ignored her were now paying attention, some with curiosity and others with doubt. She understood that earning respect was only part of the journey. Maintaining it required even more effort. Every day brought new problems, unexpected changes, and moments that tested her resolve. It was during this time that a particularly complex project landed on her desk. It was larger than anything the team had handled before, involving multiple departments, tight deadlines, and high stakes. Pam reviewed the initial documents carefully and noticed immediately that there were gaps in the plan, missing data, unclear responsibilities, and a schedule that was almost impossible to meet. Many people would have panicked, but Pam didn't. She had learned that crises weren't solved by worry, but by calm analysis and clear action. She called a meeting with the team, including representatives from every department involved. Some faces in the room were skeptical, others resigned. Pam began by laying out the issues she had discovered, pointing out the risks of proceeding without adjustments. "I know this looks overwhelming," she said, "but if we break it down into smaller steps, assign tasks based on each person's strengths, and communicate clearly every day, we can complete this successfully." A few colleagues exchanged glances, unconvinced. One of the senior managers leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said, "It's going to be difficult to coordinate everyone." "You're asking a lot." Pam nodded calmly. "I understand, but it's possible if we stay organized and focused. I've outlined a schedule that can work, and I'm ready to help anyone who needs guidance along the way." Over the next several days, she worked tirelessly to implement the plan. Pam checked in with each team member regularly, offering support, clarifying doubts, and adjusting assignments when needed. Some staff members were still resistant, but they couldn't deny her attention to detail and ability to keep things moving smoothly. Slowly, even the skeptics began to follow her lead, seeing that her approach worked better than the old, chaotic methods. There were moments when Pam felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Mistakes were inevitable in a project of this size, and she often stayed late to correct errors or prevent potential issues. She knew that some people were silently judging her, waiting for a failure to point at. But instead of letting that discourage her, Pam used it as motivation. She wanted to prove, not just to others but to herself, that competence and persistence could overcome doubt. During one particularly late evening, she found herself reviewing a spreadsheet that seemed endless. A junior team member who was also staying late noticed her focus and said, "Pam, I don't know how you do this every day and still stay so composed." Pam smiled softly. "It's not easy," she admitted, "but if you take one step at a time and remember why you're doing it, it becomes manageable." The junior employee nodded, clearly inspired. For Pam, these small moments mattered. She wasn't just completing tasks. She was setting an example, showing that dedication and patience could make a real difference. A week later, the project faced an unexpected challenge. A critical resource was delayed due to an external problem, and deadlines suddenly seemed impossible. Some team members panicked, blaming the delay and arguing over solutions. Pam took a deep breath, refusing to let stress take control. She gathered the team and calmly explained the new situation. "We have a problem, yes," she said, "but it's not unsolvable. We can adjust the workflow, prioritize tasks that don't depend on the delayed resource, and keep moving forward. We'll make up the lost time with careful planning." Her calm, practical approach reassured the team. They reorganized their schedules, focused on what could be done immediately, and relied on Pam's guidance to coordinate efforts. Slowly, the work progressed and the initial panic faded. The manager, who had been quietly observing the team's response, approached Pam after the meeting. "I'm impressed with how you handled this," he said. "Most people would have been overwhelmed." Pam shook her head modestly. "I just focus on solutions. That's all anyone can do." But the manager knew it was more than that. It was her leadership, her ability to stay composed, and her willingness to help others succeed that made the difference. Over the next few weeks, the project continued under Pam's guidance. Each day brought new lessons. She learned to anticipate potential problems, communicate effectively with multiple departments, and maintain morale even when the work was stressful. Her colleagues began to respect her more deeply, not just for her skills but for her ability to lead without arrogance or harshness. Pam also made it a point to celebrate small victories along the way. When a team member completed a challenging task successfully, she acknowledged it openly. When a process improvement worked better than expected, she shared the credit with everyone involved. These gestures, simple as they were, created a sense of unity in the team. People started to see her not as a competitor or a threat, but as someone who genuinely wanted the team to succeed. One afternoon, while reviewing progress, Pam noticed that a few team members seemed frustrated with their workload. She called them aside and asked how she could help. They shared concerns about deadlines and unclear responsibilities. Pam listened carefully, then reorganized tasks, clarified expectations, and offered guidance on managing time efficiently. By the next day, the team was functioning more smoothly, and morale had improved. Pam realized that leadership wasn't just about giving orders or presenting ideas. It was about understanding people, helping them feel capable, and creating an environment where everyone could do their best work. Despite her growing influence, Pam faced new challenges outside the office: personal responsibilities, social commitments, and the constant pressure to perform weighed on her. She had to learn to balance her professional and personal life, finding time to rest and recharge. She made small changes like planning her schedule carefully, taking short breaks during the day, and delegating tasks when appropriate. These adjustments allowed her to maintain her energy and focus even during the busiest periods. During one particularly challenging week, she realized the importance of patience and perspective. A colleague had made a serious error that threatened to delay the project. Instead of reacting angrily, Pam approached the situation calmly. She reviewed the mistake, explained the correct approach, and guided the colleague on how to fix it. By handling the situation with patience and professionalism, Pam not only resolved the problem, but also reinforced the culture of learning and accountability within the team. People began to see that mistakes were opportunities for growth, not reasons for blame. The culmination of all this effort came when the project was successfully completed on time, despite the initial challenges and delays. The higher management praised the team's work, specifically noting Pam's role in organizing, guiding, and motivating everyone. The staff who had once underestimated her were now some of her biggest supporters, openly acknowledging her contributions and seeking her advice on other projects. Pam felt a quiet satisfaction. She didn't need the praise to validate her effort, but it was a reminder that persistence, preparation, and integrity eventually gained recognition. She had faced doubt, resistance, and high pressure, but by staying focused and helping others along the way, she had proven her capability in a lasting way. After the project's success, Pam reflected on how much she had grown. She realized that her journey wasn't just about achieving results, but about learning how to lead, inspire, and create a positive impact on those around her. She had turned the skepticism of her colleagues into respect and collaboration, all while remaining true to herself. Even as she looked forward to new challenges, Pam carried the lessons she had learned: patience, resilience, humility, and the power of quiet determination. She knew that future projects would bring new obstacles, but she also knew that she had the skills and mindset to face them. Her confidence wasn't loud or boastful. It was steady, rooted in experience, preparation, and the knowledge that she could handle whatever came her way. By the end of Part 4, Pam's story had evolved from one of being underestimated to being respected, trusted, and recognized as a leader in her office. She had shown that consistent effort, thoughtful leadership, and genuine care for others could overcome doubt and create meaningful change. The next phase of her journey would bring even bigger challenges, but she was ready, stronger, wiser, and prepared to surprise everyone once again. Pam had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever, but she knew that true leadership was not about resting on past success. Every day brought new challenges, and she welcomed them because she had learned that each challenge was an opportunity to show what she was capable of. This final part of her journey would test not only her skills but her resilience, patience, and determination in ways she had never experienced before. The office had recently taken on a project that was unlike any they had done. It involved tight deadlines, multiple stakeholders, and complex coordination between departments that rarely worked together smoothly. The stakes were high. Any mistake could result in missed opportunities and dissatisfied clients. Pam's manager, aware of her prior successes, asked her to take the lead. She accepted, not with pride but with a quiet sense of responsibility. The first step was organizing the team. Pam carefully reviewed each member's strengths and weaknesses. She thought about how to assign tasks so that everyone could contribute effectively, while also learning from the experience. She knew that overloading any one person could create mistakes, and that a balanced approach would yield the best results. Once the plan was outlined, she called the team together to discuss it. Some members were skeptical. They had faced challenging projects before, and feared that this one might be too much to handle. Pam acknowledged their concerns without dismissing them. "I know this is a big challenge," she said calmly, "but I also know that each of you has skills that are crucial to making this work. If we support each other, communicate clearly, and stay focused, we can handle it successfully." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. The team began to feel a sense of confidence, not because of promises, but because they saw Pam's dedication and careful planning. Over the next several weeks, Pam worked tirelessly. She arrived early, stayed late, and constantly checked in with her team. She made sure everyone understood their responsibilities, clarified any confusion, and provided guidance whenever it was needed. But she did not micromanage. She allowed team members to make decisions and learn from them, knowing that mistakes were valuable lessons if handled constructively. There were moments of tension. Some colleagues grew impatient when deadlines approached. Others were frustrated by unexpected obstacles, like delays from external partners or changes in client requirements. Pam remained composed. Instead of reacting emotionally, she addressed each problem logically, calmly outlining solutions and delegating tasks efficiently. During one particularly stressful week, a critical issue threatened to derail the project. A major part of the plan was rejected by a client, and the team panicked. Pam could feel the tension in the room, hear the sighs and whispers of doubt. She stood quietly for a moment, letting everyone calm down, then spoke. "We have a problem," she said softly, "but it's not impossible to fix. We can adjust our approach, focus on what the client really needs, and deliver something even better than before. Let's take it step by step." Her calm tone shifted the atmosphere. People stopped complaining and started listening. Pam broke down the tasks into manageable steps, assigning responsibilities and setting clear deadlines. She even stayed late herself to help with some of the more complicated adjustments. Slowly, the project began to recover. Team members started trusting her judgment completely. They followed her guidance not out of obligation, but because they respected her. She had earned that respect through consistent effort, patience, and fairness. In the middle of this intense period, Pam noticed a younger staff member struggling with a particularly complex task. The employee looked frustrated and on the verge of giving up. Pam could have simply reassigned the work, but she decided to take a different approach. "Let's work through this together," she said kindly, sitting down beside them. She patiently explained the steps, shared insights, and helped the employee build confidence. By the end of the day, the task was completed successfully. The employee looked relieved and inspired, and Pam felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. She realized that true leadership wasn't just about completing tasks herself. It was about helping others grow, even under pressure. As the days passed, the project faced more challenges. But Pam's leadership kept the team together. She was alert to small details that others overlooked, anticipating potential problems before they became crises. She made adjustments without blaming anyone and gave credit to her team whenever things went well. Her approach created an environment of collaboration and trust, and slowly, even the most skeptical colleagues began to rely on her judgment. Finally, the day arrived to present the completed project to the company's senior executives. The stakes were higher than ever. Everyone in the office had been working tirelessly, but the responsibility for guiding the presentation fell squarely on Pam's shoulders. She prepared meticulously, reviewing every detail, anticipating questions, and ensuring that the team felt confident and ready. When the meeting began, Pam stood at the front of the room, calm and composed. She started by summarizing the project, highlighting key challenges and how the team had overcome them. She spoke clearly, confidently, and with a quiet passion that drew everyone in. As she went through the details, she emphasized not only the results but the process, showing how collaboration, preparation, and adaptability had made success possible. The executives were impressed. They asked questions, some difficult and unexpected, but Pam answered each one with clarity and composure. When they challenged certain decisions, she explained the reasoning and presented alternative options, demonstrating a deep understanding of every aspect of the project. By the end of the presentation, the room was filled with nods and smiles. The executives praised the work, specifically mentioning Pam's leadership and foresight. Colleagues who had once doubted her openly acknowledged her role, some even offering apologies for underestimating her abilities in the past. Pam felt a quiet satisfaction. She had worked hard, stayed true to her principles, and helped her team succeed, but she didn't let pride take over. She knew that success was temporary and that the next challenge would soon arrive. What mattered was the growth she had experienced both personally and professionally, and the positive impact she had made on her team. After the meeting, the office celebrated. It was a moment of joy, relief, and camaraderie. Pam watched her colleagues laugh, share stories, and enjoy the recognition they had earned together. She felt proud of them all. Her own satisfaction was quiet but profound. She had proven to herself and to everyone else that persistence, preparation, and integrity were powerful tools. In the weeks that followed, the office culture continued to improve. Pam's influence had set a standard for professionalism, collaboration, and respect. New employees were inspired by her example, and seasoned staff had adopted many of her habits. Mistakes were no longer met with blame, but with constructive solutions. Challenges were seen as opportunities rather than threats, and through it all, Pam continued to lead with patience, humility, and focus. One evening, as she packed up her things after another long day, a colleague came up to her. "Pam," they said softly, "I've learned more from you than anyone else here. You've shown us how to handle pressure, work together, and stay calm." "Thank you," Pam smiled. "I'm just doing my part," she replied. "You all deserve the credit too. We did it together." As she walked out of the office, the sun setting behind the city skyline, she reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the early days when her ideas were ignored, when she felt invisible and when others underestimated her. Every long night, every small victory, every challenge had shaped her into the person she had become. She had not only earned respect but had created an environment where others could grow and succeed. Pam realized that being underestimated was never a weakness. It was an opportunity. It had forced her to work harder, think smarter, and lead with empathy and integrity. It had taught her patience, resilience, and the power of quiet determination. And in the end, she had stunned everyone who had doubted her, not with arrogance or loud declarations, but with consistent, steady excellence. Her story became a quiet inspiration in the office. People spoke of how she had transformed projects, guided teams through crises, and handled challenges with grace. But for Pam, the true reward was not the recognition. It was the knowledge that she had stayed true to herself, helped others grow, and turned skepticism into respect through hard work and unwavering dedication. And as she looked forward to future challenges, Pam knew one thing for certain. No matter what came next, she would face it with the same focus, patience, and quiet strength that had carried her this far. She had proven, most importantly to herself, that being underestimated could become the foundation of extraordinary success.